Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast powered by Siemens. And now, your host, Niall Sullivan.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I guess what were those predictive services products? So, like you said, very asset or machine specific.
Mm-hmm.
So, was it? I guess it must have been customer driven why those particular products were created, right? Was it customer driven? A customer need?
Of course. We wouldn't just sit in the lab and think, okay, what can we create today? No, it was really driven by concrete customer requirements or customers who were having an issue and were looking for a solution, and we developed it together with them. So for services that didn't exist before, you cannot just create them. It's a journey to develop them, and it cannot be done without an actual real application or real customer behind. We don't have an automotive press in the lab. It's just not reality. So and when you work in such an agile approach, I mean, having a pilot, trying things out first before it actually becomes a standardized product, you can do only so many pilots at the same time. You cannot cover everything. And there was also the time when cloud technology got bigger. So for us, back then it was called MindSphere, now it's Insights Hub, which was one of the big trends where there was infrastructure, but I mean, the target was always to make use of this infrastructure to create application, to create value for customer. So that's one of the technology drivers, I would say, was part of this whole journey. And the second infrastructure technology aspect now is the industrial edge technology, and that we're also trying to look at, because not every customer is very happy about cloud computing, or maybe there's just some carefulness still because it's new. So industrial edge is really one of the other drivers that we listen to a lot, because it makes sense to do the computing of data that's close to the machine, do it close to the machine. And this was one of the aspects we still see a lot of development going on.
And actually, for those who might not know what it is, could you explain a little bit what industrial edge is and what sort of benefits are versus cloud, for example?
Okay, so edge in general is the architecture close to the machine, close to the shop floor. And at Siemens, we have our own ecosystem growing, which is called industrial edge. So this is actually the product name. And it means having computing power directly on site. And the advantages of this is, of course, if you have a lot of data, you have this locally. You don't have to send loads of data via the internet. So it's cheaper to do it directly on site. There's less latency, of course, because you have the data where they are needed. And of course, it's a matter of privacy. You don't expose the data outside of your site. So these are, let's say, the benefits to do local computing. On the other hand, cloud has their advantages too, starting from the big chance to scale. You don't need to buy big computers right away, but you have the resources available if you want them. So this is something, edge is very dedicated, but cloud gives you a lot of performance to scale in terms of computing power or also storage, and having global access to it. So again, there's always benefits and to each option, but when edge is very private and closed, cloud gives a lot more perspective and more opportunities.
And there's obvious reasons why cloud, like some companies might be reluctant to embrace clouds, but have you seen over your career a shift in terms of attitude? Even though not every organisation may be on board for various reasons, but has there been a shift over the past, say, 5 years even?
I think so, but still the market is very different. I mean, you always find some of the first movers who are keen on trying out new things, and yeah, one of the examples even within Siemens is that we now use cloud storage. Everybody uses cloud storage right now. And if I change my PC hardware after 5 years, I just had to do this recently, there's not much trouble to change because my data is stored safely in the cloud and I can just access it again even with a new PC. So sometimes we might not even be aware how much cloud helps us improve our lives or make things easier and available at all times.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's another sort of part of what makes Senseye sort of unique or special in terms of that it doesn't matter what the data source is. So you're not sort of tied into certain providers or or products, I guess, or systems that kind of thing. It sort of broadens that as well. Because I guess you might be limiting yourself potentially by keeping your data locked down on site.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't talk about it much or I don't think about it much, but of course there's various security measures in place to still make it a reasonably secure way to do this. So this is also something. So for Senseye, you don't need to send every data that there is in the factory to Senseye. It's really dedicated data for condition of the machines. So again, this is also, it's not the same as exposing business figures and innovations or inventions or something like this. So there's also difference in quality of data, what there is that's being used to analyze. And in this sense, condition data for machines, it's fairly okay, I think. And the benefits are greater than the risks from my perspective.
Yeah, I guess it'd be hard for someone on the outside, I guess, if that data, did get into the wrong hands for whatever reason, they'd have a hard time actually getting any meaningful business, like in any secret insights into that, I guess. But I guess it's just for certain industry and certain companies, it's just part of an overall. It might just be an overall attitude towards cloud or a standing point. So they can't be like cloud's fine for this, but not for that. I don't know, or don't know what it's like from your experience.
Yeah, sometimes it's just kind of the initial reaction, cloud, ooh, that's open, that's risky. But sometimes it's just worth it to think about it again and distinguish the different levels or qualities of data about which we talk. So I think it's helpful to take some time to consider this and really find a way to come to a conclusion that it might make sense actually, or the risks are low enough. So I think even though the first reaction can be different, many times I've already seen this kind of shift of understanding or kind of the development of these thoughts towards a pragmatic approach in the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just it's all listening to the the potential ways to approach it rather than just dismissing it because it's cloud, so we definitely can't do that. There might there should be a room to sort of think about logically how it could work and how it could benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned data. So again, with Senseye particularly, and we're actually launching a report very soon about this, about data and cultural maturity and how important that is. And we've sort of done we've got some data on how the market, how mature the companies are in both of those areas. But from a sort of data collection perspective, have you seen the data quality improve over time? One thing that I've observed going to events and talking to people is that they've sort of, a lot of companies are collecting data because Industry 4.0 sort of encourage people to do that. But then there's a lot of companies are at a point where they're like, well, I've got all this data, but what do I do? What do I do with it? How can I get any insights from it? So I'd be interested to get your perspective on that.
I mean, the world is colorful, and I think there's, for every possible stage, there's some customers who are exactly at this stage. But I mean, right now we're kind of at a cross point. I think right now we're still looking at the majority of brownfield installations, and they might have been built 20, 15, 10 years ago. And back then, people didn't consider collecting the data as much. But these applications or these factories are still running and in place. And for them, it might be a huge effort to put additional sensors or collect the data from the PLCs inside. So for them, that's still a journey to go through. But all the green fields that are being built right now, for them, it's natural to kind of have all the data available. And I think this will change over the next 5 to 10 years, that it's state of the art to have data easily accessible. It needs some more work on standardization and data formats and APIs and so on. But in general, this is becoming less and less a problem. But right now, yes, we have to take care about the situation as is and address the brownfields. And this is really something where Siemens come in with their expertise, and that's actually a service to consult with the customers. We know the technology in general, automation principles and so on, but it is work to get the data out of these automation systems right now. Yeah.
And when you say brownfield, again, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, that's existing infrastructure, something that's maybe 10 years old or so. It's there, it's productive, the machine is producing the parts as it's supposed to. But back then, when it was being designed, it wasn't such a big topic to collect temperature or current or pressure data or whatever that is that describes the condition of the machine. So this is something, an existing plant from our perspective or in our vocabulary, that's a brownfield plant. And yeah, we have to individually look at it together with the customer to see what's the potential. Maybe some of the data is available within the PLCs, just nobody ever asked for it, and it's not such a big problem after all to get it out of there. And in other cases, it's necessary to install additional sensors to get this data. That's something that needs to be looked at, and that's where we can help the customers identify and see the potential that they actually have with their existing machines.
I guess I don't know whether this is the case, but when there's new factory or new plants being created, are they already, I guess they're thinking about, that's the difference, and they're already thinking at that stage, we need to add connectivity and sensors and collect data from the very start. I guess that's how it's changed over the past few years, rather than retrospectively having to install hardware.
Yeah. That's really, right now it's state of the art for a PLC to have connectivity MQTT, for example, right? Or OPC UA. These are the standard features that are available now, and every new plant or machine that's being created has this when they use the current technology. So we don't have to think as much about it anymore because it's a given. It is then there. But the bigger section, as I said, of the market is the existing industry. And that's why we need to focus on the brownfields right now.
Yeah. So do you envisage today when data is perfect and it can just, you go to a customer site and the data's all ready to go and off we go.
So what do you need? Yeah.
So I guess and I guess it's an ongoing sort of educational piece, of course, because again there's that gap sometimes where customers think their data's better than what it is, but then they sometimes think it's a lot worse than what it is as well. So I think there's always going to be a little bit of unknown there, I guess, on both sides, I guess.
And I remember this one incident when I was at a customer who has a big automotive press, and they have their maintenance personnel there, and this kind of old guy told me, well, I put my hand on the press and I feel exactly what's going on with the press. So why do I need a PC to do that for me? Why would a PC replace me? So he was really kind of proud of his knowledge, which is understandable. But is he able to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And that's the difference. Of course, humans have this expertise, but the computers can take away some of the burden to always be there. And this is kind of, for me, that was eye-opening. I didn't want to insult him and say that he's useless, not at all. But it's normal. He's a human, and he cannot be there all the time, but computers can. So that's a good typical picture for me. For predictive maintenance, of course, you use the knowledge of the experts who deal with these machines every day, and you have a way to kind of capture this knowledge and make it available to more people, and lift some of the work off their shoulders, but that they just have to be there.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting story. I guess the other way to, from a Senseye perspective, it's sort of saying, could you do that for like 1,000 machine?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know your machine better than probably anyone else or whatever. But can you do that? There's not thousands of you to do that. So it's about. It's interesting. That was the attitude was, I know it won't replace me because I know it well, and that's why I guess there's got to be a shift in attitude. That it's not just the technology is there to assist, and it's still, again, talking Senseye specific, but it's still we still require, or for the software to really take off, is the human or the maintenance person's insight as well. So we're not just relying on what the data and the technology is saying, but it's also, that's another key part of it. It's what feedback we get from the maintenance person too that drives the success of the tool.
Yeah, at Siemens we're always talking about combining the real and the digital world. And I think Senseye is a good example for this because we provide information based on data, so that's more the digital world. But in the end, I mean, there's a physical machine, and a person has to get to this machine and perform whatever maintenance that's necessary. But having this feedback then fed back to Senseye creates even better support. And in this sense, I find it a very good example of combining the real and the digital world with predictive maintenance and Senseye.
And are you seeing that sort of attitude that you described from that example? Is that sort of changing? The technology is not like a scary thing to take anything away, but it's there to assist. Is that you're seeing a trend in particular, I guess, predictive maintenance, if you want to go specific about it?
Yeah, I guess we're still in that transition phase from the old world to the new world. So some are there already, and others still have to learn that.
Yeah, I think it's almost because I was speaking to a colleague the other day. I think did a site visit for a prospect recently, and I think there was a room full of people, and it was a mixture of sort of younger. Well, I was not saying it's a young or old thing because, again, we've got another customer who, someone's just retired, but he's very on board with Senseye and he's doing everything, so it's certainly not an age thing. But there was different. I wouldn't even say age, actually. I'll change that. It's not age. It's just different mindsets. Like half the room could be very much like, what, why do we need this, or, why are we doing all this? And the other half are like, know the value of technology straight away and want to embrace it and see how it can help improve their, again, make their jobs easier, which is essentially what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and every time a moment where that happens, this effect, cool. If I can get rid of this, I don't know, cumbersome tasks and automate it, and I have more time to focus on other stuff, I really enjoy, experience these moments together in the conversations.
Yeah, and that's again, talk about culture a lot, but that again, that's again how a platform's not just technology, but it's also a way to at least assist or drive cultural change as well. So to shift that mindset, it's not magic. You won't do it by magic. It requires sort of effort has to be said on the customer side as well. But if they're on board and willing to do that and put all their sort of get behind the idea, basically and multiple stakeholders getting behind the idea, then it can actually drive that cultural change throughout the business.
Yeah, and as technology driven as we are within Siemens, this is really something we cannot state often enough, that it's also about culture change and that we help our customers transition. And this is something, again, why it's service, why it's not just selling an app. It's really something where we can support the customers in experiencing, learning, and changing their behavior with the help of technology.
Yeah, and actually sort of slightly linked to that as well, because I think obviously digital transformation is another big sort of topic. And I guess from my point of view, sort of predictive maintenance, obviously it's from it's a big focus of me is predictive maintenance, but actually it's just a small part of a wider digital transformation strategy. So I'm just wondering, from your point of view, Anja, how does predictive maintenance fit into the overall picture, how could it fit into the overall picture of the digital transformation strategy?
So, I mean, customers are at different stages, but for example, if there's a customer really at the beginning of a digital transformation, I would recommend in having one of the first steps is getting an overview of the overall equipment effectiveness, really to have these. So that's the combination of availability, of the quality of the products, and the output of the machines that they achieve. If a customer gets clarity on these three factors, that's something where they can start kind of setting up an app, cloud-based or edge-based. So it's kind of an easy start with a limited scope, but getting acquainted with all the mechanisms of cloud or edge technology, connectivity, and so on. And this is a good starting point. Once they know where they're at, once they have transparency of their KPIs, then they can look a step further. Well, what do I want to improve? And then how can I improve it? And then they would come, for example, to predictive maintenance in order to improve availability. But there are other scenarios when it comes, for example, for quality, that they could automate quality inspection or look at the process that leads to certain quality results and how this can be improved. So these are other areas, not exactly predictive maintenance, but close enough when it comes to production. Of course, there's also these offerings within Siemens.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.